In this video game, known as Stellar Blade, which is really fun, by the way, you got to fight these different creatures throughout the game, and the guy I want to go over today in the hierarchy, yeah, there's literally a hierarchy in the game. I want to go over the mightiest Naytiba in this series. See, Naytibas are basically mutated humans. They are a result of genetic engineering and rapid evolution, but a lot of them are berserk and mindless and just kill for no reason. The guy I'm going over today actually has a mind. He can think clearly and he's super powered. The reason why this stuff even happened is because of these experiments. These androids were going up against the humankind, and the only way for humankind to even stand a chance was to mutate, evolve, and turn into these monstrous Naytiba beings. Adam, the character I'm going over today, the elder Naytiba, talks about how they had to give up their humanity in order to survive. The game itself doesn't just straight up outright tell us how he became how he was. They even talk about how the game even says they don't even know if he became a willing test subject, turned into a monster due to contamination, or was revived as a Naytiba by others. See, he's really smart because he's the reason why the android technically exists, honestly, because long time ago, he was this guy known as Raphael, the creator of Mother Sphere, which was a powerful artificial intelligence. So intellect-wise, he's a pretty good engineer, and I guess when he became a mutated being, that's also stopped him from aging, which could explain why he looks so young, even though he's technically the oldest guy in this game. Everything started with him, technically. I mean, you see the tech that you see him using in the game, like this motorcycle with cannons on it, like it looks pretty cool. So he's pretty tech savvy. And back then he was that smart, and you know, he's literally super old. He's been literally searching for decades in order to find a way for humanity to survive, or one could say build a new humankind. And that's when he fused with Eve and stuff, as you all know. Let's analyze the mightiest Naytiba, shall we? I mean, you could argue and say he's a shapeshifter. He can change modes. But then if he wants to, he can look like angelic, but then have human Naytiba mode. I guess you could say technically this is his true form. He could throw away his humanity and just power himself up and look all the way like an actual angel. He has a lot of different abilities. You could almost argue anything we see the other Naytibas do, you can argue he can do those abilities and more, one could argue, because he can do a lot of stuff like literally fuse with other beings, like Android Ados, for example. Seems to be an energy projector to be able to blast out energy, consistently make his own weapons or spears. This is something he constantly does, along with energy projection, blast. He can do some Green Lantern stuff and like literally make solid energy constructs or ropes to hold beings down and restrain them like this. He might have his own pocket dimension he can store things in. Like, notice how he just pulled this out of absolutely nowhere. Like, where did it come from? Not to mention it implied to have telekinesis to some degree. Implied to be able to make a shield to where this mech literally can't hit him. This powers of creation thing seems to be a constant theme, because when Eve fused with him, like, you literally see her do the same thing, literally creating a new sword out of light. When it comes to the power of creation, it seems to be legit, because not only do you see it in his bio, but he's constantly creating things, either constructs, literal living Naytiba beings, living beings that have their own free will. Not only create these things, but sustain it to the point where if he dies, all of this goes too. Like, he's literally sustaining it. It's like building a house, but constantly holding it up. You see what I mean? Like, you guys know how construction workers can create stuff and build buildings, right? But they're not the ones that's actually holding the building up. The things that are sustaining the buildings is brick, metal, screws. All these things put together is what's sustaining the building. But when it comes to the elder Naytiba, he not only builds these constructs, but he sustains it. For example, long as he's given life, his energy of his life force is constantly holding up things in this universe. Like, he's sustaining it. There's a difference between building it and let the structure itself hold itself, but he's actually holding it up at all times. Kind of reminds me of how Atlas is constantly holding the sky. Like, he's constantly doing it, like a stamina feat type of thing, sustaining it. Yeah, I'm using a DC Comics pun, but this kind of applies to Elder. Like, he's sustaining different things. Like, imagine him constantly holding on to your life thread. Like, that's kind of what the elder Naytiba is doing all the time. He's sustaining it. Because in the dark ending, when he actually gets murked, you see all the Naytiba he created go away. And even the nest itself, like, he was apparently sustaining all of this large structure. Let's analyze the elder Naytiba. Let's look at this hierarchy real quick. This is the easiest way to do so. There's like literal no-name Naytiba. They're like house-sized. I think we all could agree when it comes to strength and just anything, we could agree that the elder can do anything this one can do, but better. I mean, there's literally Naytiba that are literally house-sized. Why wouldn't Adam be able to at least lift a house or something? You know, there's literally Naytiba that can clash with Eve's muscle a bit. Like this Naytiba, for example, which is nowhere near as strong as the elder. So there's implications. Some of these can hit ridiculously hard and, you know, clash with her actual muscle. You know how strong Eve is, y'all? Based on this little fishing mini game, don't judge me, but apparently Eve can lift 16 tons by catching a freaking whale shark. This is 16 tons, and he's the mightiest Naytiba. There's weaker Naytiba that can clash with Eve's muscle somewhat, but of course Eve overpowered them, of course, but Elder would have to be in this range by default, like bare minimally having the strength to lift over 16 tons. It wouldn't make sense if he didn't. Totally believable. There's Naytiba ridiculously much larger than this, so it makes sense, and he's above all those Naytiba that are large. For example, there's this Naytiba that's in a lower rank that's literally larger than buildings. Yeah, there's Naytiba this big. You see this arm? Yeah. Mountainous in size. Like, look, there's this orbit elevator. This thing goes all the way to space. Yeah. You see another angle of it? Yeah, it's this wide. All this steel, the width of this being. Yeah, this is how wide this Naytiba was. Honestly, the Elder should be able to lift thousands of tons if we're being honest. This should just be scratching the surface based on what lower tiers and how big the lower tiers are, and he's stronger than them in every way, sustaining their life, literally. Just to give you an idea of how hard he can hit, like there's literally minion Naytibas that can survive being crushed by stuff this heavy. This Naytiba is like a couple ranks below the Elder, shown here. If the Elder couldn't destroy a building, that would kind of be embarrassing based on what his lower creations can do. This is where the Elder was still in hiding, like when Eve was like ambushed, like this, stabbed. Take a guess on who's the one to save Eve here. It's freaking Adam. He just came in here by himself and just handled all these people. You can get an idea of how hard Adam can hit based on lower tier Naytiba like this. You know, when Taki became an alpha Naytiba, you see her literally devastate a building. So why wouldn't the Elder be able to do something similar to a literal building large structure, making the whole thing collapse? So he himself can collapse buildings or just slice them in half, right? And then there's the matter of this mountainous size Naytiba that we know the Elder is above, literally shown in the hierarchy. The blunt force this one can hit, the Elder can do that too. Let's be honest. With his energy blasts or attacks, there's a possibility the Elder could quake mountains or hurt mountainous sized things based on the size of that Naytiba and based on how wide it was compared to the inside. Like this place is wide, and this Naytiba is wider than all of this mess. Like it's wide. He's pretty mighty, and this feat is kind of hard to interpret. It appears he either altered this nest they were in or literally made his own dimension. Like what happened here? Like you see it looks like he's made like, yeah, what did he reshape the nest, make a whole dimension? What happened? When we're talking about raw speed, he can zip towards beings from point A to point B real quick. It's clear he can blast with concussive force like this, almighty push style. And he even has so much blast power, this super mother sphere mech, he just incinerates one shots. Similar to his Naytiba creations, he has Naytiba that can literally shoot out beams of actual light. Similar to this, we kind of see the Elder do similar stuff when it comes to shooting out actual beams or constructs of light. So based on this, you could say he basically has light speed attacks. This is pretty consistent when you realize he can easily react to beings like Eve in combat speed. Somebody that's shown to have consistent bursts speed. I mean, even on the writing her outfit translated, I translated myself. This stuff is translated to superluminal speed. I even did a couple translations. One of them said speed of light. One of them said superluminal. Superluminal means having speed greater than of light. So one could say light speed, attack speed, or fighting speed is just like a base minimum. You can say that the Elder would have surpassing light speed type of speed to compete with Eve this good. But did you guys enjoy? Did you guys know the Elder Naytiba was this strong? I mean, he has to be. He's literally sustaining the lives of all these different Naytiba all at the same freaking time. And if he's ever to cease to exist, this entire nest will break down and collapse on top of you. So all of this, he was indeed sustaining with his life force, just being alive or just existing. Seriously, guys, can y'all explain this for me? Like every time this guy gets hurt, this whole dimension just completely vanishes and goes back to normal. Like what? Did he create his own dimension? Like how does this freaking work? I can't wait to see how strong Eve has become after fusing with this guy in the sequel game. The Elder believes. You should also hit that like button though, and hit those notifications, and thanks for the donations, y'all. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.